Hello there, my beautiful book lovers. My name is Camilla, and welcome back to my book nook. So today we're celebrating one of the greatest and my all-time favorite authors of all time, and that is Charlotte Bronte. Today it's her birthday, and I thought it would be so lovely and appropriate to have a video recommending some Gothic book. But before we start, I would like to do a little intro to who Charlotte Bronte was and what she did and everything about her life, because even though I'm pretty sure most of us have heard at least of her and might even know a bit about her life, it will always be nice to have a refresher. So anyway, Charlotte Bronte was born on April 21st, 1816 in Thornton, Yorkshire, and she was the third child out of the 6 kids, and was born in the family that really were all about reading and writing and creativity, let's say. But unfortunately, she had sort of tragic and hard life. She lost her mother when she was 5 years old due to cancer, and by the time that she was a little bit older, she was sent to a boarding school with 2 of her older sisters. So there were 2 older sisters. It was Charlotte, and then she had 2 younger sisters and 1 younger brother. And so the 3 of them were sent to school, and this school was very well known for being a very harsh environment, and actually is the school that inspired Charlotte to write in Jane Eyre about Lowood, the school that Jane is sent to. It's inspired by this school. And unfortunately, when she was there, she lost both of her sisters due to illness. And so after that, she moved back home, and by the time that she was with her younger siblings, they all very much in love with writing and reading, and they used to create these imaginary worlds and write about them and read each other's work and share it with one another. And then eventually Charlotte, Emily, and Anne wrote this collection of poetry, and under fake male names. Charlotte took it to a publisher, but unfortunately the book didn't do that well. But it was the spark to sort of push the 3 of them to write better books, let's say. And that is how a year after, we end up getting Jane Eyre by Charlotte, Wuthering Heights by Emily, and Agnes Grey by Anne. And Charlotte was actually as the oldest sister. She took all the books and took it to publisher and wanted them to all be published. And that was when it all started. Jane Eyre was very well received by the public. They were very intrigued by how this book, it's describing these passionate feelings, and not just about even love per se, but these feelings and ambitions that this young girl has, and how she's sort of going against what was norm at the time being. And have that in mind, that they thought that this is a book by a man. So they were very intrigued at how this young female character has all of these sort of independence in her, that she sort of goes against her employer, Mr. Rochester. And so they were very intrigued by that and enjoyed it. And then by the time that they figured out it's actually written by a woman, there was sort of a mixed reviews. Some people were very much still sort of in awe of the book, and some people that were like, oh, this is not ladylike, and all of this stuff. But Charlotte was actually very enjoying even the negative comments, because she was just happy that she was able to write a book that brought out so much emotion and reaction from the people. So anyway, after a while, unfortunately, in a very short span of time, she lost her 2 sisters and also her brother, so she was the only survivor. And even though she was very heartbroken, she continued to write, and she wrote Shirley in Villette and never get to really finish The Professor. So even though she lived a sort of a hard life, she was truly one of the greatest. And even if we don't say that she and her sisters, the three of them, really created the genre of Gothic, we can really for sure say that they were the ones that really took it to the next level, and were really the people who really pushed it. And so if you have read Jane Eyre and enjoyed it, I highly, highly recommend to read Villette and Shirley, because they are two books that are a bit different than Jane Eyre, obviously, but they're still such a groundbreaking books. Since Charlotte and also even Anne, they both were governess, and Charlotte even was a teacher for a while, and they hated it. They didn't enjoy it at all. So they had all of these experiences of how hard women had it, that they could not pick any job really. They had a very limited sort of a choice of what they can do, and because of that they didn't have any sort of financial independence. And so they were like, even with the governess or being a teacher, the environment was so toxic and harsh that a lot of the people that would wanted to pursue that would not enjoy it or be able to survive it. So they brought up all of these topics that was so new for that time, that a lot of people were so shocked to see that other side. And so I highly recommend to really read all of her works. I have like Villette and Shirley right there, and I enjoyed both of them very much. They are really great. Jane Eyre is obviously the best for a reason, but these two are also wonderful. So anyway, now to get back to the list, I would like to say that in my opinion, when I'm considering a book to be a Gothic or not, it's a book that really describe the setting and that environment, whether it be a school, a house, state, castle, whatever that it is, that it's so vividly described that you are there, and it gives you all of those eerie feelings. With Gothic, it's one of those that, like, you know, it's not like one genre. It has always like elements of other genre, like Jane Eyre, for example. It is Gothic, obviously, but it also has the elements of mystery and romance in it. So for all of these books that I have picked, they are the same. Like the Gothic, it's like really their main focus and like what is like stands out, but they have like other elements. So anyway, for the list, I thought it would be very appropriate to start with the Bronte sister, the other two. And first we have Wuthering Height by Emily Bronte. This book, if you have not read it, it's another fantastic classic for a good reason. And this book is about Heathcliff and his love for Catherine. And the story, it's actually about this young man. He's sort of like renting this estate, small little place. And one night the weather is like really harsh and bad. And so he's staying with Heathcliff, who is his landlord. And while he's staying there, he starts to sort of like hear and learn about the story of that estate, how Heathcliff owns it, and like the story of the family and everything related to that. And it's a fantastic book. It's one of those that you feel it in the heart, and it's such a lovely, sad, tragic story. And I remember reading that book the first time, and it was I was reading it. I had this like part-time job. I was working in the like one of the admin offices in my school, and obviously I didn't have that much to do. And so to fill up my free time, I used to like read books, and one of them was Wuthering Height. And I remember by the time that like you're reaching at the end, like the 1/3 of the book, I was so consumed with this book. I would always like literally pray that nobody walks in, not because to get caught or anything, but simply because I didn't want anybody to come and interrupt me. So it's a fantastic book. It's really not only grabs you, but also makes you to feel all of those feelings. So if you have not read it, I highly recommend to give it a go. And then the other Bronte sister, Anne, even though that her first book was Agnes Grey, that one, it's not as Gothic really. It's a fantastic book, don't get me wrong. But for this list, I wanted to pick The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. So this book, it's about this young woman that moves to this small little village with her son, and nobody knows who she is, where she came from. And since it's a small village, people would like to get to know you and know where you're coming from. But Helen, this young woman, she is very sort of guarded, does not like to communicate or interact that much with these people, and so they start to talk, and there's gossip, and there's everything that people don't understand and don't know. And there is this young farmer, and he is sort of very intrigued by Helen, because especially again at the time being, it was not really common to have this a young woman with a child on her own, because sure, there were a lot of widower that were very young, but most of them would either move back with their family members, or at least people knew about the husband and everything, and it was not similar to Helen, and nobody had any idea where she came from. And so he was very intrigued, and he really wanted to get to know her and understand what was her story. So the book, it's about that. And this is another fantastic book that really shows you how wonderfully these three sisters, just how creative they were, and how they were able to create all of these worlds because of the experience that they had. Again, because Anne was also a governess, and so she had those experiences of the harshness of the reality of a woman who wants to be independent and have some sort of life on her own. And so it's a great book. If you have not read any of her books, she has the two, I highly recommend to honestly read both of them, but this one, it's more Gothic if you're looking for that. And then staying with classics, but sort of moving from the Bronte sister, if somebody says Gothic, the first thing, it's Charlotte Bronte and Jane Eyre, but then the other author that would come to at least my mind, it's Edgar Allan Poe, because he is also phenomenal. Honestly, he does eerie and sort of horror so well. And even though most of the books that I have read, the poetry, the short story or whatnot by him, I have enjoyed them very much so. But for this list, I wanted to pick The Telltale Heart and Other Stories. It's a collection of stories, obviously. And this book, it's fantastic. The main story, it's about a young man who is trying to convince us and himself that he is not losing his mind, and we are seeing him losing his mind and things that happens. And it's one of those stories that honestly, if I have to describe it by one word, it's haunting. It truly is in different senses. And if you have not read any of his work, I highly recommend to start with this one. Honestly, all of his books, again, are great, but I enjoy this one very much. And so I feel like if you have not read any of his books, this would be a nice introduction. And if you have read, and if you have not read this one, I recommend it. If you have read it, I recommend to go back and read it again, because there's always a good reason to reread old classics. And then moving to a sort of a more of a contemporary, we have The Silent Companion by Laura Purcell, if I'm not wrong. And this book, it's even though it's contemporary-ish, the time that it was published, it's actually about it's happening during the Victorian era. And the story, it's about this young pregnant widower that because she recently lost her husband, she is moving with her husband's cousin in the state, the bridge, and this house is sort of falling apart, and she's pregnant and she would like to live in a place that it's not falling apart, so they sort of clean it up and look around and try to get it organized. And eventually they come across this locked door in the attic, and she wants to sort of see why it's locked, what's happening there. So they open the door, and there's this wooden figurine that Elsie is sort of like very intrigued by it, and it's like, oh, this is nice, let's just bring it to like one of the rooms. And they bring the figurine down, and then the story starts. This book, it's very interesting. It has the elements of Gothic because of like, you know, it truly has those like eerie feelings, and also has the elements of mystery, a little bit of supernatural. And so if you are looking for a book that has all of those elements, I highly recommend this one. I was really looking forward to like, you know, find more contemporary Gothic books, and so I came across this one and I read it and I enjoyed it. It was, I will not say that I loved it. It's not like a 5-star, but it was a good book. I enjoyed the ride. I was able to like, you know, be intrigued by some aspect of it. So if you're looking for a more contemporary Gothic, I would recommend to give it a go, and hopefully you will like it even more than me. And then sort of going back a little bit to another classic, which it's not as like old as like Jane Eyre per se, but it's not as contemporary, and that is The Phantom of the Opera. I don't know if you have read this book or if you have seen the movie, because first of all, the movie is great, but the book, it's even better in my opinion, because like honestly, anytime that there is a movie or a show that it's based on a book, I recommend 99.99% of time that the book it's better, because you know, like they have so much more room to improve a story in the book, because like, you know, like they can describe a lot of things that maybe visually they cannot create it or make it for whatever reason in the books, in the movies, or like they need to cut stuff because like it will be too long or whatever. So the books is usually like where it is. This book, it's about this young girl, Christine, and she is sort of like living in this opera house. And she's hearing this voice that it's helping her to become a better opera singer. And like, you know, they have this sort of like connection with one another. And then one day, one of her like friends, Raoul, he comes over, and like they haven't seen each other for a while, and then the story starts. This book, it's phenomenal, and I would put it in the Gothic category simply because I was living in that opera house. Honest to God, like because of the description, and also the eerie feelings and the mystery and everything that's happening with it, and you're like, you know, sort of following the story with it. It was just so there that it is Gothic to me. And if you again have not read it, I really recommend to give it a try, because you know, and other than the like the Gothic aspect of it that it's great, I also love it because it is one of those books that has one of the greatest villain, since it's one of those characters that you feel for it, you know, and you're like, poor you, but at the same time you're like, stop doing this. So it's phenomenal, and I loved it. I didn't think that I will enjoy it as much, honestly. I knew that I will enjoy it, but I didn't expect to love it so much. And so if you have not read it, seen it, again, you have to do it. If you are looking for Gothic, it's all there. And to finish and wrap up this list, obviously, I'm going to finish with Mexican Gothic with Silvia Moreno Garcia, because this book, it's like right next to Jane Eyre for me. I mean, it's very close. Jane Eyre is Jane Eyre. But it is one of the greatest contemporary Gothic books, at least in my opinion. It just pulls you in. And the story, it's about this young girl that received a letter from her cousin, that her cousin just married like an English rich man, and so she moves with him to like live in a big nice state somewhere with his family. And then like she received this letter that is like, for the love of God, come and save me, and she's not sure what's happening and why she needs to do it. And the story, it's about all of that, and it's phenomenal. Honestly, I have talked about this book before, but I love it so much that I cannot do a video about Gothic and not mention it. I have read other works of Silvia Morena Garcia, and they're all really good. I love Mexican Gothic. I think it's just hold it like such a dear place for me, because even though like her other works are really good, Mexican Gothic is there, and then the rest are like, you know. So if you're looking for a more of a contemporary book, I recommend to give this book a go. But I hope, and I'm sure, or I hope that I'm sure that you will not be disappointed. It's a very, and even if like, you know, you will not love it, I don't think you would not like it. You know, like it will be still enjoyable, and so I hope that you give it a try. Anyway, that was all for today. And even though I know that the weather is getting warmer and like, you know, the days are longer and it's not really the perfect sort of season to read Gothic, but give these books a go. And if not, just write them down in your TBR list, and by the time that like fall and winter sort of come back and it's cold and rainy and all of those like dark days, give them a go, because I'm sure you will enjoy them. And by that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next time, happy reading.